Hi everyone, I'm going to do a video on replacing the remote control of the Aircon, Mitsubishi Aircon. Now, I've been using this Aircon for about 10 over years, and over time the remote control, as many users have experienced, have turned black. And so I tried to do a research on this to see what has gone wrong, and it's what many in YouTube known as the black spot problem. And as you can see from this one here, it's quite bad. And of course, there are a few options. You can buy ready-made ones, OEM, from overseas, or you can just replace. Many YouTube videos show on how this replacement is done, but unfortunately, for many other brands and many other remotes, I couldn't find anything on this particular remote, so I decided to do one myself and show everyone. For those who are interested, have a bit of time and like to fix this one, all you need is just a bit of time, energy, and a roll of reflective tape and a few tools, and then you'll end up looking something like this. So without further ado, I'm going to use this guy, and the model that I use for my house is actually KM09G. All right, let me see if I can focus this properly. So KM09G is the one that I'm using, and I think the KM series will be pretty much the same for this remote. So without further ado, let me just go ahead with this. First thing first, of course, you have to take out this flap, which is straightforward, and then remove the batteries. Once the batteries are off, this particular remote control has no screws at the back, and as a result, you will have to remove via the clips, and the main clips will be at the bottom. All right, so let me get a screwdriver. I'm going to use a small one. There are some places that hold the whole thing in place. You remove the back panel, and the places that you want to look for is somewhere near where the battery location is. There is a little groove over here, and one of the clips somewhere around here, and of course on the other side is the same. And of course there's one guy in the middle here that you have to loosen off. So let me just go ahead with this, and you need a little bit of energy and a bit of effort to pry it off. Gotta really reach out to the bottom area, and then you hear a click sound. That means, well, the clip has come off loose, and just have to really dig hard at it, kind of pull it out further. Coming out on one side, you will then try to go after the other side as well. As you can see, you just have to go underneath. And you can see it's starting to come out a little bit, so I'm going to just have to be a bit careful. Yes, now it's out. Then you're going to have to work your way up towards the top of the remote bit by bit, just being careful not to crack the panels. This is the most challenging part of the whole process. The other one being replacing the little bits. Many of you who have done the research online, you realize all you needed was just a piece of paper or some reflective foil, and you have to remove that original one that has faded away, hence causing the black black thing showing up. Now for this particular situation, it won't work with white paper, and I'll explain later why. I bought some reflective foil myself, but it wasn't the most ideal. There were some problems with it, but overall it still worked well enough, and considering this aircon has been with me for over 10 years. I think it's a decent replacement. I'm okay with it. But those of you who want a nicer outcome, I'll give you some advice on what to do later. It's not coming out yet, and I really have to be very careful with this. There, you can hear more clicks coming out. And it's starting to come apart. You work your way upwards from the bottom of the remote. There, I think it's almost coming out. The last bit, you just have to use your hands and kind of force it a little bit. Still doesn't work enough, then you have to work your way to the top part of the remote. Now over here you'll find a little groove, right? So you just have to start pushing in a little bit and working your way up. There, almost. There. All right. I'll just give you a quick look on where are the clips, on the position of the clips. One over here. All right. Fingers covering one over here where the button of this guy is, and then a couple more. These are all the holes instead, and the other side is pretty much the same thing. So what you're going to do, like many other videos that you probably know, you have to remove this panel first. So here we go. Four screws that you have to take off, and the 4 screws are all located at the top of the remote control. Now, once this is out, you will take out the whole thing, and be very careful with the bottom because the battery contacts goes all the way to the end and is attached to the panel itself. So you be very careful and take it so that you don't bend and spoil the whole thing. All right. So here we go. Let me try and take this out carefully. Now it's out. Basically, this is how the whole panel looks like. All right, and you can see this is the top part. Now what we would want to do is to remove the rubber area here. Just take it off. And then this one, on the first look, it is attached to the board. And because what you have to deal with is at the bottom, this unfortunately will have to come out. Now the good news is this can come out. It's just that when you put it back later, you got to be very careful and make sure the position is going to be correct. Just a light tug, out it comes. Now this piece at the back, this is the one that caused the blackening of the display. So that particular piece, just like many other YouTube videos you've seen, that particular piece will have to come out. It's actually the original silver foil. First thing first, I will just get all these rubber pieces out first. I will deal with this later. First, let me just align this back in first. So this goes in, and I'll leave it aside for now. Now we come to this. Now, we need to find a way to remove the silver foil. And the silver foil is actually attached to the back. And if you see some videos, they will use a pen knife to remove the foil. But you must be very careful not, if you're going to use a pen knife, not to hurt this display panel. And one more thing you also have to do is watch out for the position. If you notice there's some wording at the back, you put it right up, that will be the position you need to put the thing back. And one thing I will try and do in order to not to get confused later is to just write a small little positioning for the panel. And just to make it simple, I'll just do a arrow so that I know where is the top and I will not have problem aligning it later. Just a little arrow, doesn't hurt. The side area is very spongy, so something like this. Alright, once you have the little arrow, we can proceed to take off this foil. And I'll use a pen knife, and you'll be very careful because what you want to do is not to hurt the glass panel which the display is showing up. And the good news is usually the edges of the adhesive is not completely sealed in, and it will be quite easy to peel it off actually. Once one of the corner, you find a corner that will come loose. So one of the corner is off. I'm going to try and peel off. I'll just peel out a bit first and show you. There. Just show you quickly. Alright. And I'll just proceed. And this is where that whole area has gone white. The silver function has gone, and you of course can see the adhesive on the glass itself, which you'll have to remove. And just like every other video that's showing how this is done, all you need is just some IPA or some little, liquid. I use IPA as well so that the adhesive come off pretty easily. Let me get IPA first, just a moment, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back with my IPA. Isopropyl alcohol, that's the original name, the full name. I'm just going to put some on, a little bit of it on the tissue and proceed to rub the adhesive off. As you can see, it's coming off bit by bit, quite nicely. Get a bit more. Now be very careful not to hurt the two areas here, because that is where the contact is going to be with the panel, the PC board, PCB. So I just avoid that area and just hold the thing very carefully. And work on the adhesive. Still peeling off bit by bit thanks to the IPA. Almost out the entire adhesive. Right. It's all out, nice and clean. I'll just take a quick look and make sure it's going to be all right. This portion at the top, I just do it simple like. Now done, nice and clean. And so what we're going to do next is paste the adhesive at the back of this panel, the LCD panel. Just like every other video, the advice is to use reflective foil. White paper works, but not for this white paper, because you realize the way this is designed, white paper is not going to stick on it at all. So you just really have to get a reflective foil adhesive to paste it on. Now this is the second challenging part of the whole process. All right, you want to get something like this. I bought this online. All right, looks nice and good, but it came, when I used it, it was bad news, because just like kitchen aluminum foil, one side is very shiny and the back part where the adhesive is actually more dull. So I ended up having a duller surface, and it did dim the panel a little bit, the actual remote a little bit, but to me it's still better than white paper, better than black spot. So I still went ahead, just used it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure out and cut a piece of this aluminum foil so that I can proceed with the pasting. And do one word of advice and caution: do get the aluminum foil that is thicker. Although this measurement, it's about, let me measure the panel itself. You will need something like 1.5 inches across. No, more than that. It's about 1.25 inch height. It's 1.25 inch this, and then the length across, I think it doesn't matter, because you want to make sure you buy a roll that's thick enough. The length across is just about 1.75, less than 1.75, 1.58, which translates to about 4 point, in metric scale is about just over 4 cm, 4.2 cm roughly. So 1.5 inch thickness of the tape will do some good. And then as you can see, it's going to look something like this. Alright, so here comes the next challenging part. Because my tape is pretty thin and flimsy, I had to be very, very careful when I peel it open as not to crumble and affect the display. So let's go. This is the next difficult part, and I have to be very, very careful about it. I just realized my pen marking has gone off, and if you ever have difficulty orientating around this, one trick to get the direction correct is this little white spot that you see like a solder at the bottom of the panel is always at the bottom of the panel. You will not see the solder on the other side. So just take note of that little white solder that's the bottom of the whole panel. Alright, so let me now go through this challenging process of pasting this adhesive on. First thing first, to peel the back layer. Having some fingernails will help. That's why I have yet to cut my nails. And if one corner doesn't work, always go for the others. You want to kind of open the thing gently, especially if you unfortunately got a very thin roll of foil, and you just go after the aluminum portion instead, being thin enough. Alright, you just want to make sure you don't hurt or damage that portion. So now that it's open, I'm going to proceed to paste this very carefully on. Now it's pasted, and because the foil is a bit thicker, you will see that it will reach the side of the foil. So I'm just going to touch up and do all this nicely. Yeah, something like this. Now the most difficult part is done. What we have to do, if you look at the front, it will look like this. And I'm not sure if my camera is going to be able to capture. You see a little bit of lines and such. It's because of the thinness of the aluminum foil causing some creases. But to me, using an old remote like this, it doesn't matter. Okay. So now what we're going to do is put everything back. And as I mentioned earlier, we make sure this is at the bottom. So this will go back in. Yeah. And I'll put this directly into the area there. Goes in, done. And then the rubber stopper that was earlier, together with it, put it back in as well. Okay, so it will end up looking something like this. Now that this whole thing is done, the back panel goes in. Unlined it with the screw positions. And then lastly, the battery areas. You just want to make sure you plug it back in without damaging or the curvature of the battery's contact areas. The one at the end with the protruding spring, that's the one you always have to be a bit more gentle about. Well, goes in. Goes in. Now the whole thing goes in. It's nice and good. And then we will screw in everything. 4 screws back on. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to test it first before I assemble the other case together. And where are my batteries? Let me get some batteries. Just a moment, please. I'll be right back with batteries. So sorry about it. All right, batteries are back. And you have to be careful. You want to test it with the batteries first. Is ensure that the earlier spring area doesn't come out. So you kind of have to hold it in. Otherwise, the batteries, when you fix in the batteries, will cause the spring to pop out. So hold it, pop the batteries in, and there you go. Everything is nice and clear. So now that we are sure this is at the right place and is working as it is, I'm just going to assemble everything back before I get the batteries back in again. Done. And now the casing. Now we're going to reverse the process of what we did earlier. We took it out from the bottom earlier, so now we're going to put it back from the top first earlier. Be very careful, make sure the remote air sensor is nicely positioned, and then bit by bit from the top, pop it back in. There, done. And then the batteries. It's done. Done. Now, for those who need to know how the clock is going to be set, I'll just do a quick one. What you do is you press, there's a clock button here, you press it and it will blink. Once it blinks in this way, you're ready to set the clock. My local time is 13:54, so I'm just going to proceed to hold on, and then off it goes. And of course 13:54 means you can go backwards. The bottom button is for going backwards, but I'm just going to push it forward until I reach 13:54 or I reach 14 o'clock. Oops. Quick check. It's 13:55 now, so one more. And then once you set it like this, you're going to take the thing and push again. And then, now the clock is set. And it no longer blinks, the little double dots. Now, this is done. This remote is good to go. Just do a quick test. It works. Alright, I'm going to switch the mode. Alright, I hope you guys enjoy this video. I'm sorry if it's a lengthy process, but for many of you who need this information on Mitsubishi Aircon replacement of the LCD at the back, this is how it's done. Thank you very much for watching and staying with me till the end. and enjoy the process of replacing your little aluminium foil as well. Cheers.